what's next on the agenda? What are we looking at next after the image upload?
Pass 79. Yeah. So,
Well,
I mean, you know where we're at with that. I think the big problem with Pass 79 is the spec itself it's really good, but I think they've kind of shot themselves in a foot in a little in giving sort of towards the end of the document. They give a pro forma, and it's like an example interpretation of the rest of the specification. But actually, I think the pro forma itself has taken on a life of its own, where that has become the standard. It's become de facto, and I don't think that's necessarily the best interpretation of the Pass 79. It's good for some buildings, but not others. So just to give you like a quick example of the format, it's generally like here's a category where there could be an issue, say, electrical appliances, and it's just pass or fail. But pass or fail doesn't really make sense to me from an asbestos surveying background, because certainly in asbestos you get, well, there's asbestos there, but there's not there. So is that a pass or a fail? Well, that's a fail and that's a pass.
It's more location driven, right? It's not so singular. You can have multiple occurrences of these things.
Exactly. Yeah. And the pro forma kind of hints at it, because it does put towards the end, after the checkbox exercise. That's what it is, checkbox exercise. It would be like, do the walls contain, I'm using asbestos as the metaphor, but are the walls compliant? No. And it could be that it's just one wall, or it could be that it's every single wall. So you don't get like the sense of like the size of the problem.
You don't get that granular detail, do you?
Yeah, exactly. And towards the end of the pro forma, there is like an action recommendations table. And so I think what we'll do is we'll probably use that to drive the checkbox exercise rather than the other way around. Because I think most of the software, in fact, all of the software that I've seen that produces Pass 79 compliant reports only really generates those pro formas, which means they haven't read the spec.
Yeah. I found some interesting little tidbits in the Pass 79 spec when I was looking through the other day. For example, they talk about no access areas, which is pretty common in like an asbestos survey template. But none that we've seen on the fire safety side seem to have that in, and I guess that's because none of them are really location driven, right? So I guess that's an advantage of doing it the way we're going to sort of approach it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're going through a building and you're building up a survey, your approach within the building should be reflected in the software. So, if you say, you go to a room and it's locked, you should be able to say, there's a locked room here, or there's, like some live supply electricals, and, you can't check something. You should be able to mark that off, and say, here's a specific scenario that the surveyor has encountered. I'm using the term surveyor, and I know.
Yeah, we got pulled up on that the other week, right? Assessor. I've committed that now. It's in here.
I haven't.
So what do you think? Do you think the fire risk assessments are generally kind of a little bit behind the times then, like in terms of the way that they're laid out?
Well, I mean, we know there's the Pass 79 Mark II coming soon. And I think that's probably going to address changes in the industry, certainly at post-Grenfell. But I'm not sure it's going to be sort of hinting at any changes in the process. It's kind of hard to tell. What do you think, Paul?
So just from conversations we've had with the fire risk assessors that we've been talking to, I guess it's just more questions, right? So things around cladding, I would imagine, means of escape, all that kind of thing. But as you say, I don't think process will be something necessarily that they will look at. Maybe in the same way that we do. So.
Yeah, I did find it surprising, because certainly coming from the asbestos side of things, the HSG 264 is really prescriptive about process. You need to clearly identify each location. So you're going to number your rooms, and it means that you can draw it up on a map, on a floor plan rather. And the fact that the fire risk assessments, I mean, well, the pro forma doesn't really push you down that path, and the spec itself doesn't encourage that behavior. And I think that's probably a problem that we can address. So I think if we can bring our own interpretation from it by leaning on our experience in asbestos, but also making sure that it is familiar, because I think that's the other thing as well. Like the pro forma reports for our clients as clients, they're going to be used to a particular format, and so if we upend that could be a hard sell. So I think we probably do need to do both, but I don't want our customers to have to, double entry, and I think that's a common problem. So
do you think coming into this with a fresh set of eyes is like from an outside perspective, do you think that's an advantage, or do you think we're going to rock a few boats and ruffle some feathers? We're going to get people, I guess, to not necessarily change their way of working, but capture data in a different way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's. I think we're going to self-select on that front. I mean, if we're doing a sales call with a fire risk assessor, and we say, oh, here's a demo, and this is the process, and it generates, the document in this particular format. If they don't like it, well, they'll not become our customer. So we're not going to we're going to force anyone's behavior. So I don't know. We might never actually know.
Not sure if I'd really want to twist the arm of these fire risk assessors anyway. They're probably a lot stronger and harder than I am. So.
That's neither here nor there, Paul, because you're a quick runner.